Hey, welcome back to some desert rocks and sand dune kind of terrain. We got all these pieces base coated, and I like how it turned out. It's not just a real flat brown. There's actually some undertones of reds already. So now we're gonna have to do some more experimentation with what I'd like to think of as like the middle coat. I'm not quite ready to add in dry brushing and highlights and striations. What I'm thinking about doing is these warmer colors. So I've got some apple barrel red apple and some harvest orange. Now, I don't know what's going to happen here. This is kind of scary, but go with me. We're going to shake these up a little bit. And I'm not going to mix them, but I'm just going to kind of have them on hand. That is really red. And this is really orange, okay? So what I'm gonna do, wet my brush. What I'm gonna do is take some of these reds first, okay? I'll load up my brush with some red. And then just kind of dry it off there. And I'm gonna take one of these smaller pieces first, and I'm just gonna stipple these reds, okay? Good Lord, that's really red. Maybe stupid red. I don't know, we'll see. So I'm just gonna kind of stipple this red. Now this might end up quote unquote ruining the piece. Might end up being the kind of thing where like, oh man, now it looks like a blood rock, like a place where they did sacrificial rites. I don't know. So not total coverage. I don't want to lose the brown, okay? But I'm going to try the same thing with this red while I still have a little bit of it. And I'm going to try it on this here little piece. And I'm going to just brush across this time. So not quite a dry brush, but a wet brush, but just in the same kind of against the grain way. So I want to maintain my my initial brown kind of coat. And then I'll stipple across the top like I did the other one. So we'll see what happens with those. That might end up sucking. It might be genius, okay? Don't know. Now I'm going to dry this. I'm going to wash the red out of there. Dry this brush off. And I'm going to load up some of that orange, test it out on this piece. So I'm going to tell you a funny story while I'm doing this too. First time I ever went out to the Southwest was a road trip out to Vegas. And we took our time, kind of driving out through Nebraska and Iowa, Nebraska, Colorado, Utah. Kind of took our time enjoying the experience. And when we got to southern Utah, it was so foreign to me as somebody from the Midwest that I literally pulled the car over. I told my wife, I was like, I have to pull the car over. And I pulled the car over and got out on the side of the road, side of the highway, because I was so blown away by just the visuals, like the desert and I, completely straight, but like, man, it was just so amazing, so different from my experience in the Midwest, that I got out and just walked out like 30 feet into the desert just to kind of see what was what. It was cool. The colors are really vibrant. Everything was just kind of so cool. I like this orange. Kind of brightens things up. So I'm going to do a sort of a wet dry brush, again, like I did with the red. And just kind of overbrush, but I don't want to lose my brown shading, so I'm not completely going mad here. Just enough to kind of make my point. And remember, if you don't like what you do when you're crafting, just do it again. Just paint over the stuff that you don't like with more brown or whatever. Just add more layers, So So I'd like some of these rocks to have more of a reddish look, some of them to have more of a orangey look, and maybe some of them to have more of a yellow look. So I'm going to kind of just stipple some orange across the top there, jumping around different brightnesses and darknesses and whatever. You know what I had for desert terrain before this? Nothing. It's a trick question. I didn't have anything. That's the point. I didn't have anything. Now I'm going to have something. Whether it's brilliant and genius or not remains to be seen. Okay, so I have just a little bit of orange here. This is that piece where we experimented and we cut out the middle with the keys. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to do orange along the bottom. I'm going to go across the grain and do orange along the bottom, but not the top. I'm going to make the top a lighter color. Need some more of that orange though, because this is a big old giant piece. So orange along the bottom. I think that's going to look really cool. And then I'll do like a lighter color along the top. And if that doesn't work out, I could just overbrush some red to blend them in, you know, something like that. I don't know. But I'm digging what I see so far. Need more orange, man. This stuff's just soaking it up. I'm not using a lot either because even though this isn't quite a dry brush coat, it's a very light wet coat, so going against the grain, putting my orange colors in there. Also, here's the other thing. I've mentioned many times that this is not just like D&D terrain. So, you know, you could do a sci-fi thing. Like think about the movie Total Recall, you know. You can do kind of a futuristic sci-fi thing. Whatever game you play. All right, this is that last big chunk, and I'm going to mix it up. Because the worst thing that will happen is I mess everything up and ruin it all. But I want to mix this up. So I'm going to go with some orange and some red. Man, that red is really watered down. I feel like somebody was messing with me. All right, so basically I'm going with a darker orange because the red is not super dark to begin with. So this brush is super wet. But I'm going to go ahead and go along here. Oh, this might just be the jam, boy. Might just be the jam. Going along there, doing it as a sort of a wet overbrush. But I don't want to fill in all the cracks, man, because that would just take away from the really cool character that I've been developing so far with this piece and this paint strategy. So, but that's looking pretty good so far. So here we go. I'm gonna try that. Yes. Okay, so now I'm going to stipple across the top like I did before, just random spots. Random spots. I suppose I could use a sponge for this too. You could, maybe somebody out there in YouTube land will try out a sponge technique. But, you know, just kind of going with a sort of a little Zen approach to this and it's kind of blending in the stipples as I go. I don't want to cover the complete piece, but you know, I go heavy here, little area there, little area there, boom. Okay, and you know what, while I'm at it, this piece that I only did the bottom of, I'm going to throw this up on here too. So I got some of it, I might as well use it. There we go. Going to do the top now. Remember how I did the bottom in just pure orange? Now I'm going to do the top in this red. And I'll also stipple. So this is almost an experiment in rock formations. Now, I was looking at Google images, and I noticed that a lot of times with these desert rocks, you have these like very light white, almost, you know, beige kind of yellowy striations that divide the layers. And I'm going to try to do that once these dry up. I'm going to try to do that. So again, here I'm just stippling on just different areas with this red, and you know, you can't really go wrong with this kind of technique, because it just creates more variety, more texture options, you know. Okay, so we have a whole bunch of things going on here. We got this reddish orange on some of these. We've got just the basic red on others. We've got more orange on others, which is cool. I'm digging this. I like this. Now, I don't know how that is going to dry up, but I could already see on some of these pieces, the ones that I started with, that orange really lightened up the rock, which is probably a good thing, because this is, as I said in the beginning, this is kind of the middle coat, right? Because I still have these three colors in my palette. So I've got this really vibrant, light-colored yellow. This is Sunny Day by Apple Barrel. And then I've got King's Gold, which is a little more of a muted yellow color. And then I've got this khaki, which is, instead of highlighting with white, it's more of a warmer white, but it's still kind of just a dry brush highlight thing. That'll be probably the last thing I do. But I'd like to try the striations with the thin brush. So let me dig through the Palette O brushes, because I want to find something that is going to give me enough control to really get in and do small details. So like preferably a firmer brush. That, this might be the jam. Nope, that's too soft. There we go. There we go. Something with a really kind of a straight edge. That brush. Now, you can't see it there, but let me just tell you, that's a real straight edge. So what I'm going to do is do a little experiment while these are still a little bit damp. And I'm just going to kind of draw on some striations. So just layers, like making a sandwich, okay? So I'm going to go with the King's Gold as my first striation attempt, because I think it's different enough from everything else. Kind of looks like mustard. Now again, if I don't like it, I could just overbrush it with another dry brush. But I'm loading up this brush with yellow, but not to a ridiculous amount, because I don't know what this is going to do. And I'm going to start off on this baby small one, okay? So what I'm going to do is just kind of go in along here. Breathe. Sometimes when people are painting or they're concentrating on stuff, they hold their breath. Don't do that. Now, what I don't want this to look like is just a dumb painted on line, which it might look like at first. But once we overbrush it, I'm hoping it won't look like that. So this will have to dry before I can truly know the impact that it's had on my piece. Okay, so there's like the first striation. Now I'm going to go down from that another ½ inch or so. And I'm going to paint another very as thin as I can striation line. Yeah, and see this red that I put on here is still drying, so I have to be super careful because I don't want to smear the red. I just want to go over it. So I'm just going really gently and really slowly and taking my time. So that's coming along. No, don't want to put too much paint either, because if it drips down, then it's not going to look like a striation. Okay, so I don't know if 2 is enough. I think it needs 3, or maybe even more. I don't know. And I'm even thinking like a really, really almost pen thin brush, like the kind that I would use to paint minis, might be the way to go with this. But this is just an experiment. And you know why? Because terrain is exactly what you want to do for experimentation. You want to be able to feel free. You can't mess it up. Because if I don't like it, I'll paint right over it. Just like a canvas, you know. If I don't like it, just paint right over it. Now, people, I'm telling you that I do not have steady hands, probably because I drink way too much coffee. So if you're thinking, well, Bill, you're an established artist. I have horribly shaky hands, which is typically not good. So when I'm painting, I try to just breathe and slow my heart rate down and just be calm, as calm as I can get. Okay, so here's the thing. I did those striations. I'm going to let them dry, because on this side, do you see that? Cut back to this camera. See that on this side, how it's already dried? A lot less wet looking and a lot less bright. And that, if that's how the rest of these turn out, I'm going to be very, very happy. So, but I don't want to smear it, so I'm not going to mess with it, okay? But I like those striations so far. And remember that the perhaps unnatural painted look that they have right now will be altered by the dry brush. So as I go through with the dry brush layer, once that's dried, it won't smear those lines. I can't dry brush it now. Got to let everything dry. But once we get to that dry brushing layer, then we'll be able to just kind of hit those highlights and it'll blend even more. So this is exciting. I'm very excited by this. I'm going to go ahead though and do another striation layer. But that gold might not have been the same kind of vibrancy that I was looking for. So I'm going to try a little bit of my sunny day. So it's a much lighter layer, and this might just be kind of an option to explore. So this red coated one that I did in the first round here, the one that I was like, it looks like a blood sacrifice altar. I'm going to start off with that. I'm going to use my sunny day layer. I'm just going to really lightly go through this. Just really lightly go through this. Yeah. And maybe kind of a brighter yellow will dry in a way that's that helps it look more like striation lines. See that? That's I think it's going to look really cool, guys. And you know, again, part of what I think makes crafting so enjoyable is the unknown. Like any discipline, when you're learning something, you study from people who know their material, right? Your teachers know something, or you know, if you're studying with a coach for some sporting thing or training, you study with people who have an established rate of success, perhaps, some credentials. So when I studied crafting, I followed great crafters who showed me tricks of the trade, right? And a lot of my early projects were just replicating what they did. You know, I built little medieval buildings out of cardboard like DM Scotty did. And I added my own little spin to it and made my, you know, and that's how I came across how to do floors that looked really, really good. And to this day, I'm proud of that. It was an early experience, but it was an achievement. All right, that's one striation line down on this piece. And you know what I'm going to do? I don't want it to look like it was tagged by somebody for, you know, safety. So I'm going to kind of just drag my brush across, maybe a little lighter this time, because this is definitely a lighter color that I'm working with here. But it's coming together. Now, one other thing is that I've seen people do builds for this kind of desert terrain, including relatively recently to me making this video. V over at the Crafting Muse did a great job with assembling these kind of, I'll call them sandwich rocks, you know, where basically she actually, instead of one fat layer where I'm painting on striations, she actually made it so that each layer was like a thinner layer, and it looks really cool. So that's another, you know, style. I'm not going to go just make her video because she made it. So you can go over to her channel and check it out. But you know, there are different techniques for making everything, and I have often found that there's not just one technique that's good. You know, one crafter is the one that I follow, and that's the only one I follow. You follow different crafters for different things. You know, they all have their strengths and their kind of their particular touch, their thing that they do. I'm digging this though. I really like how these are looking. And I think that I don't know if I'm going to do these striation lines on all the pieces. Maybe I'll hold off. Maybe what I'll do is hold off and see how they paint up on these smaller pieces, and then I can make the decision. Because I think some of these desert rocks maybe they don't need striations. Maybe they don't need, and plus I want to see what the different yellows do. You know, I've got two different yellows. One of them is a little more rich golden kind of yellow. The other is more of a true, you know, brighter yellow. So I think it's important to see that too, how that works. But remember, as I always say, that when you break out terrain on the table, whether you're the DM or whether you're a crafting player, you know, the people at the table should be appreciative of anything that you've made. Even this most simple, you know, structures can add tremendous amount of playability and depth and immersion to your tabletop experience. This is really cool though. I will say that this, of all the crafting with pink foam series that I've done so far, this I think this is my most challenging, because there's a few more steps involved, you know, like just doing this part. This is a little more time consuming and a little more challenging. But I'm excited, you know, I'm excited to see what this is going to look like. Now, look at this guy. This is the one that we started with, and these are drying up, that kind of mustard gold. It's drying up, but it's still wet, so I can't really do any overcoats on it. But I think what I'm going to do is leave these here to dry, because we still have this middle coat stuff here. These reds and oranges are all still drying, so I don't want to mess with it too much. But what I'm going to do is let these dry, and then when they've dried up, I can take a look at how these striations look and decide, you know, maybe compare them to actual pictures on Google. And decide whether or not I like them and I want to do that, or if I don't like them and I want to, you know, just do a regular highlight coat. But in either case, all these pieces are too wet to do a dry brush highlight coat. So this is where we're going to stop this part of the video. And when we come back, we'll finish these guys up on the next part. So thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Smash that little notifications button and all the good stuff. Hey, hope you enjoyed that video. make sure that you subscribe, and don't forget to press the little bell icon so you get those notifications. And you know what? While you're at it, check out some of the other cool video content on the channel. I'm sure you'll have a blast.